All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's already 1:30 and time for us to start by take off this, well, almost last session, the penultimate session of our days here at CYSAT. And I'm utmost glad to welcome on stage Mr. Cesar Carmona, Principal at Novaspace. A warm round of applause to cheer us up. Thank you for being here. I will let you introduce the guests of this panel and leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Margot. It's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you very much to the CISEC and CISAT organization for inviting me again as a panelist and as a moderator on a panel. I was also a panelist a few years ago. So, well, today we're going to talk about the role of CISO in the context of space companies. We all know what a CISO does, or we should know what a CISO does. So it's all about compliance, it's all about governance, it's all about leadership of the security organization. But in a space context and in the current geopolitical context is even more challenging, because what happens when when your space company is delivering services that are critical to your customers? What happens if those customers happen to be states, nations, and those data are in fact critical for them? So that makes the CISO role even more important, more critical, and the responsibility on your shoulders is even heavier, so to say. So we're gonna discuss with a number of CISOs from space companies. We have an amazing panel today. We will touch we will take a little dive into the CISO activities. So we will start by testing the waters a little bit, and then we will dive a little bit into the bottom, but just quickly. So we will go into some technical topics, but not so technical. Don't worry too much about it. And then we will come back into the surface, addressing some topics related to standardization, norms, and especially threat assessments and security posture. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panelists. So Mr. Andrew Newson, VP at ICEYE, please. Mr. Gert Villemos, CTO and CISO at Leanspace. Mr. Laudermilch, Chief Information Security Officer at Vantor. Mr. Scott McCormick, Chief Security Officer at Planet. And Mr. Bruno Perrot, Managing Director and Security Officer at Starion, Luxembourg. Welcome. Welcome, guys. It's really a pleasure to have you here today. So let's talk about what you guys do as CISOs. It's kind of an interesting role. It sits between the top management of the companies. It has a lot of responsibility, as I said before, but you're also interfacing technical teams, operations teams, pretty much all of you. So I want to start talking about what you actually do, and what is actually changing, let's say, within your role with the ever-evolving threat environment. So from a compliance perimeter defense into resilience engineering, business enablement, and strategic risk governance. So that's pretty much the topics that we're going to address at the beginning. So first question goes for Scott. Well, Planet operates at scale and is a fast-moving commercial company. You have a very, very quick turnaround times. How do you keep security aligned with business velocity?
Yeah, as a CISO, we're all about balancing risk really across the company, right? So when it comes to being able to enable the company, the old way of security was security always says no, right? So I think when we think about how we enable the company across the board, whether it's dealing with customers, whether it's internal issues, things like that, I think there's a huge array of issues that we deal with on a daily basis, and some of those are firefights a lot of times. But at the same time, it's making sure that your strategy is set, that you're obviously talking up to the board, your executive teams, in those sense. And I think as one of I would say an owner-operator, we have a wide array of everything from on-orbit to ground stations to our SaaS platform, delivering that imagery, trusted imagery back to our customers.
Thank you, Scott. Norm, coming now to you. So you're coming, like some of the panelists here, from a broader CISO lens, so you were not always working on space topics. You have a lot of experience. So what changes when the protected environment includes sensitive military operations, integration of satellite data, sensor data fusion, and even AI?
Yeah, great question. And Cesar, thank you very much for inviting all of us. We're happy to be here today. I think this is a really interesting question, because if you think about what we do on this stage, the infrastructures we run, the spacecraft that we build and launch and operate, and the products we deliver to our customers, we are enabling the world's most important and complicated decisions on a daily basis. So we are critical infrastructure on a global scale. And so because of that, we're not just regular cybersecurity teams. We have a higher calling. We need to protect the fidelity of the insights we deliver to our customers. And so, what's changed really over the past couple of years, and especially as you mentioned with the introduction of military applications for the things we use. By the way, we're all sort of in that business one way or another, and the U.S. government is only one of our federal government customers around the world that use our data. And so really nothing. Our approach to cybersecurity is the same in those environments as it is in our commercial environments for companies like Google and Apple and others. What has changed is the pace and the frequency at which we're responding to events. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, I think, in one of your AI questions. Yeah,
indeed. Thank you, Norm. Gert, you are working in a slightly different kind of environment, still space-related, but more kind of platform services. So as both, and you're also CTO, not only CISO. How do you balance innovation, platform design, security governance into a single role?
Well, first of all, I've chosen to see it as a challenge, as an opportunity, I would say. I really think it's an opportunity in the sense that we are living in a time where we as a small company, we are less than 40 people, startup, building a platform, are experiencing that enterprise level and really high quality security standards are being pushed into the ecosystem. And that's very important. It's about time. Actually, it's almost too late in Europe, in my view. But it's happening, and that's good. But security requirements doesn't really scale in the sense that for a small company, the entry burden is extremely high. And the bigger companies can carry this with people and resources. We can't. So I see it as an opportunity in the sense that I can ensure that our engineers don't have the red tape they hate so much. They hate red tape. As soon as somebody comes and say no, they get upset. So I can balance that. I can explain them why we say no once in a while. And at the same time, I can make sure that our security implementation is as pragmatic and simple and automated as possible. Because the people in the organization are only going to do security if it is the easiest path. It needs to be simple and easy and natural to do, and not cumbersome. So I think initially, at least, in companies in a certain size, the combination is not bad, except time-wise. I could wish there were a bit longer days once in a while, but else I think it's a good combination. And then later, I see the rationale in splitting the role out completely.
Thank you, Gert. Now, coming to you, Bruno. So you are coming from a service, let's say engineering services delivery, systems integration environment. How do you translate security into something operationally useful for your customers and programs?
No, it's a good question, Cesar. I mean, to us, and when we chat with a customer, I mean, the customer doesn't matter just for, let's say, do you have a secure system? I mean, what they matter is that can you operate, let's say, with despite the fact that you have a security incident or a breach. This is the first point. The second point is that can you recover quickly? Because obviously, vis-a-vis your customer, you have some performance like KPIs, but I mean also your customer vis-a-vis the partner, they also have KPIs, and because at the end of the day, you need to deliver something which is safe and which is let's say operational. And the third thing is that for them the big concern, and especially those days, is the integrity. I mean, the integrity of the mission and also of the data. I mean, are you sure that you are safe? Are you sure that there is no breach? That they can ensure that what we share with you is safe and cannot be, let's say, sent, let's say, attack or be sent to somebody else. So for them, it's crucial that when you build up something, you build up something security by design, and you offer a service which is from a purely, let's say, operational perspective, workable and run on the let's say on the long run.
So I hear security by design. I hear operational tempos. I hear also interfaces with the management and with the company overall. Let's say alignment with the business. Let's now dive a little bit deeper and touch upon the topic of securing hybrid space terrestrial architectures, which is the direction in which more and more satellite missions are going. So we are in a context where missions are integrating with cloud, with telecom. We are in the times of multi-orbit, multi-operator, also edge computing and whatnot. So let's see how the attack surface changes with space systems in this context. And I would start here now with Andrew. So you're coming from ICEYE. I think pretty much everybody knows the company by now. So you were born as a commercial service. You still are a commercial company, but still your focus is becoming pretty obvious on the military customers, right, and military applications. So what needs to change from your perspective in terms of architecture when you are delivering a sovereign version of ICEYE to a given nation?
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question, and Norm touched on it pretty well. That what we do is not traditional cybersecurity alone. We're in high-stakes environments. We are critical to national defense in some cases. And that means it's not just an architectural shift. It's a whole change in the way that our commercial model, the way we operate the constellation, and secure that entire kind of stretched and elongated attack surface. Because again, in traditional companies, they typically have a very well-defined attack surface. Ours is ground stations, corporate IT, SaaS platforms, insider threat, advanced persistent threats from nation states and cybersecurity actors. And that takes a really well-defined approach. So to do that, some of the guiding principles we have is assume breach. Assume that we will be breached, and hell yeah, assume that we actually are breached, because that drives the discipline, the response, and as Bruno said, the resilience. To recover quickly is far more effective than to assume that you have defenses that cannot be breached. And so building that operational resilience and making, crisis and recovery as part of business as usual, that is what we must do in the space industry. And it's kind of core to what we develop at ICEYE. And the shift from a commercial provider to a segmented defense provider, it's more of an architecture of federated, hardened infrastructure that we provide, not a centralized constellation that is just for business purposes.
Okay, thank you. But in that context, are you handing over part of the responsibility to your customers, to the military customers, or would you are you retaining the end-to-end, let's say, security governance and?
Yeah, all of the above, because different customers have different requirements. There are some in the defense industry that have a very well-defined posture. They want to bring their own keys, for example. They want their own crypto. They want to run their own ground stations. We do that. We enable that as part of the architecture. We build the standards that enable it. And again, it's kind of define the framework once and certify many times, so that we don't have to rebuild everything for a different customer with different requirements.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Now, Scott, so from your point of view, how do you secure a large distributed constellation when the ground and cloud layers are as important as the spacecrafts?
Yeah, it's, you know, as we look at our constellations, our ground stations as part of our infrastructure, we don't look at it as, you know, IoT or, you know, we look at defending it the same way we would, you know, our corporate infrastructure, putting all the defense in depth, you know, security by design into our, basically our security stack. So, you know, and resiliency is part of it, right? Making sure that if something goes out, we have, you know, backups and various other layers that are there to help protect.
Yeah, thanks for that, Scott. Now, when it comes, Norm, let's say from an architectural perspective, so are there any architectural patterns that are helping most when it comes to, you know, meeting both resilience and short operational tempos?
Yeah, I think absolutely there is. And by the way, you're hearing some really great things from the team up here today. Bruno, you said security by design. Love that. And you're hearing the word resilience a lot, and I think we all think about resilient by design as well. And Andrew talked about the complexity of the infrastructures that we defend, because we've got space involved, we've got ground stations involved. Many of them we don't even own and manage. So there's all that kind of stuff. Architectural things that do make a difference, yes. Number one, diversity is really important. As we've all sort of moved to using commercial providers for parts of our infrastructure, like Amazon, like Microsoft, like Google, and all the commercial, you know, networking providers. I think diversity is really important, more so every day. So diversity at the infrastructure and cloud layer, diversity at the network layer, diversity at the hardware and software layers too. That's really important and a big part of resilience. The other thing is redundancy. And you know, we talk about and think about redundancy as like, you know, well, 2 firewalls are better than 1, or load balancing. I'm talking about redundancy all the way down to the humans. We forget about the humans sometimes. And, you know, when it comes to operating critical infrastructure like we're talking about, redundancy all the way to that layer is extremely important.
And in a context where you, let's say, are integrating kind of SaaS platforms, even cloud, whether it's private or public. So how can you get how can you ensure control of diversity and redundancy if it's all in a cloud and you don't know what's going on in there?
Yeah, you have to layer on top of it. You have to abstract the lower level infrastructures that you have no control over and build your own layers on top. Encryption, redundancy, you know, load balancing, things like that on top. And you need to build security layers that provide the controls you need that those providers may not. And that's really important, I think, in the world that we live in, to have that level of control over things like that. You know, let's face it, not too long ago, 5-10 years ago, it was really hard to talk to a spacecraft and try to compromise it. Now, you could hack a Linux box in a cloud somewhere and find that there's a software-defined radio and a satellite on the other side of it.
We've actually seen examples of that here at the CISO
sure have.
previous editions.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Nor, for that. Now, Gert, touching upon platforms and SaaS, so how can platform abstractions, like reusable building blocks, self-service interfaces, mission-independent solutions, and whatnot, so your daily business, more or less, how can they help enforce security by design across missions and operators?
I have to say this, as a platform provider, of course, I think that is a key enabler, in the sense that if we talk about cloud, and most people here most likely run on some kind of cloud, whether on-prem or by a provider, and you transfer responsibility to them for a lot of security things, physical security of the hardware, etc., typically, if you don't manage everything on-prem yourself. So we, on a daily basis, decide as CISO for security to transfer risks to our providers of cloud environments, for example. And exactly the same happen with the platform, in the sense that if you abstract away even more than just a basic cloud layer, but actually the processing of telemetry commanding and security of that, etc., to a platform provider, you can transfer that risk. Then, of course, you have to trust that platform provider to actually be safe, because you're giving off the, and just as you do with any other supplier, you of course need to go in and check and make sure have they compliance, are they following the rules, etc., do audits yourself, etc., etc. But then you basically, instead of everybody here by building their own safe platform and going through all the trouble and the issues and making the same mistakes, you do it there, and you transfer it and make sure it works. And then, as a platform provider, what we do is we just don't reinvent the wheel, because there are experts out there, and I met a lot of them in this conference, who know how to do this much better than I do. Sorry. As a CISO, I can just say I can choose the right solution, I can make sure, but the actual deep technical solution, I have to find the right partners. And then we build that into the platform, and we make sure that the real experts does it for us. CYSAT, for example, we're working with, and yeah, that's where the real security comes from in the platform.
You mentioned probably two of the most fundamental words in security, which are risk and trust. How can you actually build that trust with external providers in order to, be able to transfer that risk ultimately?
I think first of all, it is to show that you understand what the problem is, and you understand and can talk the language of your client. You understand the problem. Secondly, is of course things like compliance, and be able to show that you've actually gone through the process and the audits and the compliance, and you're living it every day. Has to be shown as well. And the third one is, as also mentioned by Andrew, is that is not enough. You have to be certified many times. So even if we are security compliant to ISO 27001, still, if we work with the Germans Bundeswehr will want to come and audit our solutions. If we work with the French will come and want to audit our solutions at an extra layer, and then be ready for that, basically.
Thanks a lot, Gert. Let's deepen a little bit further into this CISO pool we are swimming in. Let's talk about AI, one of the key topics today. By the way, does anybody here in the audience never ever used AI? Please raise your hand, and then I would like to talk to you.
I wanted to raise my hand so bad.
Who haven't used AI the last hour?
Even minutes. Now, so let's touch upon AI, but with the optic of security operations and automation of security operations. So the goal here is to explore where AI and automated security operations, incident detection, incident response, is helpful versus situations where humans are actually indispensable. Now, Scott, question to you. Where, in your opinion, has automation genuinely improved security operations at scale, and where did it disappoint?
Oh, good question. We're constantly trying to see where AI can improve processes, improve, triaging, things like that, right? If you think about it, used to be there's a lot of threat intel data coming in, right? And how do you sift through that? How do I know what's affecting certain systems in my environment. AI can really help with that. There's a lot of products out there that claim to be AI driven. We've done POCs with various companies looking at different technologies, and everybody wants to say, be the silver bullet, and it's like, no, there's no silver bullet to a problem. And so making sure that you look at where those gaps are in the AI and be able to cover and have that layered effect across your AI tools is really key. So, and honestly, as Mythos is coming out, and GPT Cyber and things like that, like we're already trying to get our hands on those types of tools and see like where even those can potentially. I know there's been a lot of news around these tools, but there's the capabilities that they're talking about. Can we use those, and how can that again improve our SOC, our incident response capabilities and such. So.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Now coming to you, Norm. How do you actually separate AI-enabled signal from noise in a high-pressure threat environment?
Yeah, I think from a security event perspective, you can't. You have to treat it all as signal. And what AI has done has enabled a much higher rate of events by automating the discovery of vulnerabilities and then automating the exploitation of those vulnerabilities once found. And Scott mentioned two things that are really, really good at that. Mythos is one, and GPT 5.4 and 5.5 Cyber are also really good at that too. So the reason you have to treat everything as signal is because right now there may still be some noise, but over time, as more adversaries use these AI capabilities, it will become all signal. So all of the events that we see will be malicious. And it's worth just taking a step back and thinking about how we got where we are, because I think everybody in the room knows that we're not too far from a point in time where humans are not going to be able to describe how things work anymore. And while that sounds scary, it's both okay and expected, because this is just how technology evolves. This is an abstraction of lower level technology details that has happened dozens of times in history. We don't assemble our own vehicles, automobiles anymore. Robots do that. We don't write software and assembly language anymore. And we taught the robots how to assemble cars, and we developed compilers to enable higher level languages and abstract the lower level details. The difference is we taught the machines how to do the work in the past, so the output was deterministic. That is no longer the case. So we are going to be seeing things built like exploits that we can't explain how they were built. And if you listen to some of the researchers from Mythos, they will tell you, for instance, there was a bug found 0 day in NFS that has existed for 23 years. And the reason no human was able to find it is because the machine approached the problem differently. We have to get comfortable with that. So it's no longer about making security decisions based on full system knowledge and full system understanding, because we don't have that anymore. That's true today. So we have to make security decisions now based on observability and containment. And so like Scott said, there are products that claim to do everything. Some of the things that we're finding useful are like agentic SOC agents. You can save a lot of time by responding to security events at the level 1 layer with agentic SOC. There will be things like that that become very useful for us in our space.
But I mean, AI, like humans, aren't infallible, right? So they fail, they hallucinate even. So being security assurance one of the CISO responsibilities, how can you assure in an AI-controlled security operations?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And even just a few years ago, there was full transparency in AI output. You could see why the model made its decisions. It would explain to you its sources. And deep learning neural networks classifiers could explain to you in mathematical terms why it classified something as malicious or non-malicious. That is no longer the case. There isn't that transparency any longer. So that's why observability is so important. We have to watch what our infrastructure and software is doing and make decisions on those outcomes and then contain. So zero trust becomes a big part. This is something that we've all talked about for years, zero trust. Well, hey, now we're living in a world where it's critically important that lateral movement and microsegmentation is built into our infrastructures, because one of you said assume breach. Was that you, Gert?
No,
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's exactly right. We have to assume breach in these different enclaves and be able to isolate and contain when those breaches happen, now that we're in a AI revolution.
Thanks a lot, Norm. So, Andrew, how are you bringing in AI technologies on your security operations at ICEYE? Give us some examples if you can.
Yeah, so I agree with Norma. I mean, the amount of data, the amount of signals, no human and those human SOC operators will be able, and are already at the point where that data is just too much. So that is one of the biggest uses of AI for us. The other element, though, is, which I slightly disagree, Norm, is kind of the human element. You know, the detection of human behaviors and the behavioral anomalies. I think there's always going to be room for somebody there to be able to help tune that and define the AI responses and automation. But we do have this dual threat. We have machines attacking us, we have machines attacking machines, and we have humans attacking the machines and the humans as well. So, you know, we haven't had to consider this before. It's really just been combating smart individuals looking to leverage vulnerabilities and exploits. So part of what we're doing at ICEYE is we're looking at that, that dual approach where, you know, the automated AI agents that can work in the SOC, these are great. You know, these are table stakes for most people that run a SOC or partner with a SOC operator. It is the only way to effectively sift through all those signals and find the right things. But we have to keep going further. You know, we have to be looking at continuous threat modeling. You know, we talk about frameworks, compliance, and most of us, well, all of us, should be doing our annual independent penetration tests and having the attestations. It's not enough. Continuous threat modeling, threat hunting, and this is where AI agents will help us do that. And that is where we see the biggest opportunities at ICEYE.
That's actually an interesting point. So what are in this context the threat modeling, let's say, refresh rates that you were working on? Are we now in the rates of, I don't know, hours, minutes, seconds, continuous?
Yeah, it's pretty much, you know, a 0 day is announced or there is a CVE and we want to be starting to threat hunt on that. We also want to start seeing some of the signals that we get from our threat intelligence platforms. You know, we ingest a ton of data into MISP. You know, we have threat intel coming from partners and national defense organizations. All of that, as again, Norm said, it is an immense amount of data and signaling, and we have to look at it all continuously in real time.
Sounds amazing and scary at the same time.
Terrifying.
All right, so let's dive even a little bit deeper and even looking a little bit forward into the future. Well, maybe even present already. Let's talk about post-quantum, another of the hot topics, and the migration towards post-quantum. So we're talking about, let's say, long life asset planning, which is pretty much business as usual when it comes to space business. We are designing missions that are supposed to be lasting for 7, 8, 15, 20 years. So that's what we're going to touch upon here. Bruno, I haven't forgotten about you. Welcome back.
I'm still alive.
So what advice do you give customers who want post-quantum cryptography, but who also want low cost and low integration effort?
No, it's a good point. I would start with two let's say, 2 points: be calm and be patient, because obviously everybody wants to have the nice and duper beeper doing everything, but at the end of the day, when you deploy something, you need to ensure that what you deploy will be compatible with the next day. I mean, which is tomorrow, which is most of the time you have, let's say, IT people and such kind of or engineer. I mean, coming with bright ideas, with already the roadmap to design this and that. But at the end of the day, it's not what the customer wants, first of all. And two is let's say, is again to the point of before, which is accountability. Because at the end of the day, what the customer do care is something which is compatible with his need, answering his need on the top, and at the end of the day, be able to, let's say, be adaptable with the technology evolution or the market evolution. Because you cannot build up something which is super duper from technological standpoint, but at the end of the day, disconnect to what potentially, let's say, the market or the security could evolve. And I'm back to the point from Andrew, which is the first things I think when we try to build up something is that to be humble, because it's not because you do think that you are the best of the world that you have something which is super safe, which cannot be breachable. Because I can tell you that we have a SOC and we analyze the trace, and you have on the other part of the table, you have nice people and smart people. They say, well, I should hire those guys to work with me instead of trying to breach the system. So my point is here is something built up to be adaptable vis-a-vis what could be the evolution.
Okay, so that famous crypto agility.
And this is a key point, crypto agility. Because everybody wants to have smart things, quantum, this and that, but at the end of the day, what you should develop is something which is adaptable and let's say, this jump cannot, let's say, jeopardize what you have so far.
Absolutely. Norm, how do you balance near-term threats with a long-term cryptographic roadmap?
Yeah, it is a today, right here today problem that we are dealing with, because there's so many short-term tactical things to focus on right now. You know, getting Mythos ready, for instance, and making sure that we're able to handle the massive volumes of, you know, of security events that are coming in is something that my whole team's focused on. But at the same time, we have this post-quantum question that we need to answer for, and it's so easy for people to think, well, we don't even have quantum computers yet. Why am I, you know, focused on this? Well, the reality is, in the next 18 months, maybe shorter, this is going to become a reality. So you have to do both. Your question was, how do you balance the tactical versus the long-term strategic on the crypto side? And you have to do both. We're getting ready to launch some more satellites, and you know, the lifetime of those birds is, you know, 10 to 15 years, like you said. So we are actively deploying post-quantum cryptography now, but I do love what Bruno said. We have to focus on the ability to adapt over time. And previous generations of spacecraft designed and built by many companies are really hard to update on orbit. We have to figure a way around that. And so that's a big focus of ours right now too, making sure that in a safe way, we can update spacecraft that live for, you know, a decade or longer as technology changes. Because in the past, the rate of technology change was much lower, and so you could live, you know, in our operational world without massive low-level fundamental changes like this. We can no longer do that.
Yeah, that's especially tricky, right? Because, of course, you want to optimize your satellite design. You're optimizing for size, weight, and power. If you don't even know exactly what algorithms you need to put in there, how can you properly size your onboard computer or your cryptographic equipment to be able to, you know, implement whatever comes up, right? So it's really not an easy question at all. And you said, well, both things at the same time, right? So tactical, let's say, threat management, long-term cryptographic roadmap. So I would now ask like kind of a consequential question to Scott. So yeah, we have to do it at the same time. How do you do it? How do you sequence? What is this sequence strategy for a large constellation to migrate to PQC without disrupting the operations?
Yeah, for our constellations, we're not, it's a store and forward situation as well, right? And so our bandwidth is very limited as well, going up for TTC. And so like those types of things, we're constantly looking at, and like looking at some of our older constellations that may not be able to support PQC algorithms. There's just not enough storage, there's not enough compute on board, things like that, right? So like, how do we make sure those are sunset by the time we do get around to Q day, right? And so those are all things that as we are deploying new constellations, we have taken into account. We have our PQC strategy, and we've used those algorithms. And I challenge my team all the time is like, okay, what happens in 18 months when the crypto that we think was PQC ready is not, right? And so like, how do we very quickly either update algorithms, roll keys regularly to mitigate the threat of post-quantum? So
very interesting topic indeed. Andrew, so thinking about sovereign proliferated constellations and PQC, is how should it be done? Is there a sense of urgency on that?
Yeah, a little bit. So Scott, I'm going to steal Q Day if that's okay. I like that. Sure. But yeah, come Q Day, I think things will look very different. What we're planning right now as a post-quantum cryptography strategy may look very, very different. And to Bruno's point, this crypto agility, this should be like top 3 for anybody that operates space assets. It is an existential threat to all of our businesses, even our customers. And this is why the urgency is there. I think I was here last year speaking about how it should be top of the agenda for most CISOs. How to do it? Part of that really comes down to defining that strategy to how you, as Scott said, just you take the hit, you recognize you have assets there that just cannot adapt, and you sunset them. You have to be brutal with it, because a compromise in the constellation is a catastrophic event. So that's part of it. How we do it is also then putting it into our engineering platforms by design all the way through, to ensure, again, that strategy is able to adapt and shift. The technology is there, that we have the processing, we have the processes, and that we have the technology to be able to affect it in 10 years, to change it in 10 years and adapt.
And can I just add to that one thing that we had a great conversation yesterday around quantum, PQC, all of that. One of the things we're not talking about is agentic AI and quantum together. Like that is a existential threat to all of our systems, not just us that fly satellites. So I think that's it. Bringing it back is like 18 months from now, when that starts happening, like where are we at with our strategies? Our strategies are blowing up at that point, and we've got to very quickly pivot.
Totally agree. And you couple that with an insider threat, somebody that can compromise that strategy from the technology level from the inside, and that blows away most lines of defense and plans. So again, assume breach, assume compromise, and have the layers there to be able to affect it. Authenticate between every layer.
Well, thank you so much. At this point, I would like to remind the audience that you can post your questions on the Connects Me app. So please don't hesitate to do so. So we've touched the bottom of this pool. We are now slowly going up again and take some air, maybe. Meaning we're going to talk about a little bit less technical stuff like post-quantum, AI, and whatnot. Let's talk about regulation governance. So, well, this is a European conference, although some of you come from the other side of the pond. I'm sure that you have a very, very comprehensive regulation body over there as well, maybe even much more mature than over here. Quite sure about it. But from a European context, so we have the NIS2, which applies to the space sector as to many other sectors as well. We have the under discussion EU Space Act proposal, which is adding cyber resilience obligations. So I'm not really after talking about what the law says. That's not what I'm here for. But rather, what does the CISO do about it when you enter your office on a Monday morning? So that's the kind of questions that I want to tackle with you. So, Nor, first question on this topic comes to you. So, where do you see the biggest gap between regulation and operational reality?
I think if we do our jobs right, there is no gap. And the reason I say that is because I think some companies get caught up in this vicious cycle of chasing the regulatory rules with their technology solutions and their cybersecurity program. That's the wrong approach, in my opinion. I think the right approach is to define a comprehensive cybersecurity program that supports all of the regulations. You mentioned NIS2. NIS2 does a nice job of documenting a lot of our resilience program and our third-party supplier, supply chain security programs. It's great for that. NIST 800-171 on the U.S. side defines a lot of our security controls. So what we've done is built a comprehensive security program that supports all of these different regulations, and then you periodically adjust, add new security controls where needed. We have this new thing in the US called CMMC. That's introduced a few more controls that we didn't have implemented. So you make minor changes to your implementations, as the regulations evolve, not chase the regulations. So I think if you do it right, there's no gap, or there's micro gaps that you just address over time.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, now up to you. So how do you adapt to the national standards and classification requirements, so even beyond, let's say, regulation, on sovereign constellations that are based on a commercial service and that are not originally conceived, let's say, for compliance against a specific national, let's say, regulation body?
Yeah, it's a good question. So finding the common baseline first, because if you chase the letter of every single regulation, every single compliance framework, there lies madness and grey hair.
That's where it came from.
Yeah, exactly.
You finally found out why.
Yeah, I can pinpoint the day. But look, I like what Norm said, because chasing the frameworks is great. If you can attest to the controls, everybody loves that. But if you leave the back door open, somebody will open it and take it. And this is where, don't ignore the fundamentals and continually test against it. Most frameworks require an annual attestation, validation, or test. This is just rubbish. It's not enough. We're in high stakes environments, and that continual testing, the continual production of evidence, I would rather be defensible in our security posture to justify the decisions we made, to be able to say, yes, look, this compliance framework element may not be ticked, but honestly, it is not material to the thing that we are trying to protect.
Thanks, Andrew. Gert, coming now to you. So how do you build compliance into the platform instead of bolting it afterwards?
Well, I disagree a little bit with regulations, because as a platform provider where we don't build one custom solution per client, regulations help us decide what to do as a baseline. So I completely agree that that's not enough, and it will never be enough. It is a baseline. And if you have that baseline right, then you're off to a good starting point. And then comes the extra. And there the problem I see in Europe in particular is that we have a tendency to micromanage, in the sense that when I look at, we follow the standards and we are open for any discussion with any client about what more is needed and do that. But when an ICEYE ITT comes out that have 600 detailed implementation requirement on security, then the idea of products and platform is dead, because I can't build a product that can adapt to every requirement that people can dream of. So we need to some point also abstract away and say, what do we need to achieve? And that is what the programs, the procurements need to define, instead of how. So we need security, and every mission will need something a little bit different, specify that at the right level, and then come and check and audit and make sure that whoever provides this actually also that the control they have decided to implement is good enough and tailor only the delta. But the micromanagement part kills all products, because then we build custom solutions again and again and again. So I think I hope regulation will help there a little bit. It will give the baseline, and it will give the framework for defining the delta in a more abstract way. And then we can go talk about the itty-bitty details about how to actually make it so there's no backdoors for your system.
Exactly. Treat it as the floor, not the ceiling.
I actually didn't find any fundamental disagreement, to be honest.
Oh, sorry for that then. I will disagree on the next one then.
Otherwise, I don't know how to handle disagreement in a panel. Of course I do. Anyway, Bruno, coming to you now. So for smaller or multi-role organizations, what is the most efficient way to operationalize regulatory readiness without creating bureaucracy and internal resistance? There you go.
This is exactly a good point, because when you talk about bureaucracy, I mean, everybody's getting mad, especially when you talk with an engineer. I mean, when I remember when they heard about NIS2, they said, okay, no. We are not affected. Give that to legal, obviously, because they said.
I've heard that before.
So and this is the start of the big fight, because we need to let's say obviously be smart and presenting the fact that what you have to do is maybe to have a small practical. Let's say to subdivide the various pieces and try to think. I mean, instead of from top to bottom, it is exactly the way around. Is how you need to be smart to think about small practical things, risk management, let's say recovery, again security by design, and the various pieces that you build up your Lego bricks, you put a kind of layer of being smart vis-a-vis regulation, vis-a-vis security. So at the end of the day, the thing that when you bring all the various pieces and the big picture that you get is compliant for the simple vis-a-vis this regulation, just because you have been smart to develop your product and to think about your product. And because obviously if you go with a big Bible of NIS2 and you show that to the guy will kick you out, I mean, of course. So I think it's try to educate the people to be smart approaching this approach, I mean, and tackle this part of it. And of course, when you talk about a small organization, and especially, for example, our office in Luxembourg, obviously we don't have this armada to deal with the NIS2 or this kind of thing. But you need to educate the people to be smart and to think about it from the bottom. And it's again to the point from Andrew, is that at the end of the day, you talk about we are human beings. So at the end of the day, you need it's also part of the training the people, exactly the point from Norm, that at the end of the day, we cannot, let's say, disconnect all this kind of bureaucracy, regulation, AI, all these kind of things, vis-a-vis the fact that at the end of the day, on the other side of the console is a human being. So training is extremely important, and also to build up, to educate the people to be concerned, I mean, to tackle this as an important matter.
So if I get you guys right, so it's a good basis. We need to know it, hold on to it, but use it smartly and intelligently, and go the extra mile. Absolutely. Okay, now to the final topic of this panel. We are finally taking some air out of the water. So it's about regional posture and differences, let's say, regional differences on the security posture and threat perception. So this is making the link to geopolitics, and it's more on the strategic context rather than on the technical details. So Scott, Planet has a strong presence worldwide. Everybody knows this. How do you manage security expectations when operating across different national commercial environments?
Great question. I think it goes back to, one, starting out with a solid security program that's based on a solid framework, right? And whether it's NIST 800-171 CMMC, whether it's ISO 27001, whatever that is, if we think about, whether it's in EMEA or Asia or South America, a lot of jurisdictions accept those frameworks. And so, of course, there's going to be one-offs and bespoke requests from your customers and things like that. I think there's, and depending on if it's, a sovereign-owned system or a commercial system that we're deploying, right? So there's a lot of different aspects of that conversations that we have with our customers. And, some are very much more technical and understand stuff, and other times you have to educate, right? And so education is a lot of what we do with our customer set, just to make sure that they're understanding, what we're doing, transparency, building that trust with the customer, so that they're not questioning us when it comes to what we provide.
Thanks, Scott. Andrew, so ICEYE has European roots, but has also global ambitions. You have strong competitors from the US. Some of them are sitting around you. Do you see any fundamental differences on threat perceptions and risk posture compared to your competitors?
Yes and no. Look, with every customer we acquire their adversaries. Mm-hmm. Some of them known, some of them unknown. And I think, everybody faces that, whether they're European-based, US-based, or in Asia. The thing that we have to develop is kind of tuned threat intelligence that is pertinent to those specific customers and the markets. And we have to be able to act on it. And again, going back to the discussion earlier, that's a lot of signals, and it's a lot of conflicting information. So, yeah, I don't know how to answer it really, because it's yes and no. The threat landscape is fundamentally different with the adversaries that we face. But as we all become more global and we pick up customers in Europe, in the US, in Asia, we acquire those problems. And that's why the global approach, the one-size-fits-all, does not withstand the defense industry.
That makes a lot of sense indeed. Looking at the clock, I'm going to shorten up a little bit on my end to allow for Q&A from the audience. So I have just one final question for Bruno. So from a Luxembourg ecosystem perspective, what makes regional coordination easier or harder when it comes to resilience in space?
No, it's a good point, because Luxembourg is small. So, which is the beauty of being small is that, you can easily, let's say, interconnect with the various institutions or within the government, and also being part of EU in terms of European Commission, this and that. Obviously, the big challenge is that being small from time to time, it's extremely difficult that your voice is heard. And the second difficulty is when you try to, because obviously you cannot disconnect the fact that, let's say, in-space security, interoperability between space and ground segment is something which is definitely beyond the boundaries. So in that case, obviously you need to coordinate as a global manner, as a bare minimum within Europe, and obviously with the US and also Asia, where definitely the interests are rather different. Because some people are protective, some people that they doesn't want to take care of that, or because it's not their own interest. So the difficulty in that case is to find, let's say, a common interest, even if at the end of the day there is a upside, downside, but able to build up a compromise. This is the difficulties of let's say, of this context. But I think, but at the end of the day, collectively, there is no doubt that we need to move away keep in mind that all the point that we said before in terms of accountability vis-à-vis the customer, which is key, which is the key, because at the end of the day, we are there because we have customers. And the second thing is that resilience, because obviously when you deliver something, you need to ensure that at the end of the day, you will deliver what you're expected to do.
Thank you, Bruno. So we're coming to the end. We don't have time to address all the questions that we got from the audience, unfortunately. So I'm going to pick just two. The first one is coming from our dear friend, Clémence Poirier. How do you leverage CTI, cyber threat intelligence, as a CISO? What is the biggest challenge? Who wants to take this?
I can have a quick one.
Go ahead.
Okay, so cyber threat intelligence is a huge amount of signal and data to deal with if you do it right. And sifting through that, filtering, prioritizing, adding context is, it requires a very well-defined strategy that adapts. So I think anybody, any of us in the industry we're in, going back again to we are high stakes teams, having that threat intelligence strategy is vital. The biggest challenge really is finding the context and reacting to it quickly enough, you know, the correlations between the signals. Because, you know, we may receive something from a national intelligence agency that is quite vague, it's semi-classified, and then we may see...
Cryptic.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if it's in Finnish, it's already encrypted. So, but then, you know, the correlation...
By design.
Yeah, secure by design. But then, you know, we may then see social behaviors, we may see anomalies that correlate with that. And that is the trick and the biggest challenge. So to Clémence's question is finding the correlation.
Okay, thank you. The last question, well, the second and last, because we don't have more time, fortunately. So is addressed to the three of you who are acting as CISOs at satellite constellation companies. So can you elaborate a bit more on your PQC strategies? For instance, are you planning to use it in the ground segment, in the space segment, on board, on TMTC, on data channel, maybe everywhere? Who wants to take that?
We could probably all just answer yes.
Yes, exactly.
All of the things.
All layers. Software too, yes.
That's a pretty clear answer. Thank you so much. Well, this brings us to the end of this very, very interesting panel. Thank you so much, all of you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Please, a big round of applause from the audience. Thank you so much.